let's get on my... Very active in here, so
No problem.
try to make sure to stay out of the way, but
Right, yeah.
this is where the magic happens. This is Temperance, and we've been working here for about 5 years now.
Do you know what this was before you got here?
Yeah, this specific space was a pet supply warehouse.
Okay.
But originally the whole building was a Montgomery Ward distribution center and like employee health club.
Oh, really?
Yeah, next door there's an old shell of a racquetball court. So yeah, we have a 20-barrel brew house, 6 40-barrel fermenters. At this point, we are filling 2 of those a week. Is that it takes 3 weeks for our beers to finish because we don't filter them, so their clarity, their brightness comes from cold crashing. So we keep them at 32, 33 degrees for up to a week. Yeah, and then the 2 little guys in the front on wheels are little single-walled grindies. We use them for fruiting. Like this morning, we already used them to pump Costa Rican pineapple juice into one of the fermenters. Yeah, so we can continue and see the canning line.
That's great. Are they, if you want to do the smaller?
The smallest ones?
Yeah. We usually ship a lot of...
Oh, okay.
Whatever you're good
that. We take credit for.
So maybe we'll do like Smittytown and Greenwood Beach. The next pour will be better. Yeah. I'm sorry. Perfect.
All right, welcome to 2 Beers and a Podcast with Brad and Mike, 2 marketing guys with a love of great craft beer and the stories that go with them. I'm Brad Fruhoff, the word guy.
And I'm Mike Rataj, the visual guy. And this show is all about the experience of beer, from the label to the glass, from the brew house to the bar. Each week we feature 2 beers that we feel have something to say or that we think worth saying something about.
And this week, we're very excited to be sitting down with Josh Gilbert of Temperance Brewing here in Evanston, Illinois. So Josh, welcome to the show. Great to have you on.
Thank you. Fun to be here.
And so we want to hear all about your brewery and
cheers. We gotta.
Well, we're gonna get there. I was just gonna. Do
sorry.
Thing.
All right, you first.
So and some of the stories of how you got started and how you and some of your beers. So we're gonna start jumping in right away with Smittytown here. Let's go ahead and crack open that. So this is Smittytown ESB.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Smell the malt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's one of those, the first iteration of the sort of craft beer comeback, if you want to call it, in the 90s, like I think Fuller's ESB and all of that kind of inspired a new generation of ESBs, and then that sort of disappeared, and now it's all about IPAs. So this is, I think, an undeserved, unappreciated, underappreciated at least, style, so much so that we often refer to it as an English-style amber because that seems a lot less scary to most people.
Really?
Yeah, they hear bitter, and I guess if it's somebody who is not an IPA drinker and all they think of is like, ooh, IPAs are bitter, I don't like IPAs, then if they hear extra special bitter, they shy away.
Right.
So it's like, it's more like an amber. Ooh, I like it.
Right. It's one of those
interesting.
confusing things about beer history, though, right? Just, the bitter is maltier.
Right, yeah.
The extra special bitter.
Yeah. So anyway, this is a favorite of a smaller number of people, but a devoted bunch, and I really like it, and I usually forget about it too. Like whenever I'm like looking at the menu, what am I going to drink? Oh, just something else. But and we actually have a coffee version on tap right now, which it's with some metric cold brew, and that pairs beautifully together. I think the malts and then the cold brew, they both complement each other. Nothing is overwhelming, and just really brings out, I think, some of the malt notes. So anyway, I maybe that will become something that we would do like a short canning run of. But right now it's just Smittytown, the original, which actually this isn't the original version of Smittytown. This whole thing, actually, it's sort of funny. the birth of this beer was it was a kitchen sink sort of homebrew with a good friend of mine who really taught me how to homebrew, and he was a neighbor across the street. And so one day we said, hey, let's, he took Friday off from work and said, let's brew together. Okay, yeah, what do you got? I have these malts, and I have this, sample that Bree sent me in the mail. It's like 4 ounces of something.
Yeah.
And then he's like, I have some ESB yeast, and we're like, okay, let's do an ESB. And then so we split the batch, and then he did something with it, and I did something with it, and I actually added cherries to it, the tart cherries, which then became Smittytown Tart.
Yeah.
But so when I was bringing that beer run to people to try, like potential investors, I said, well, right now it's called Smittytown, but I don't think we'll keep that name. And they're like, why not? It's a good name. And the reason I thought we wouldn't is because so a bunch of us who had moved to Evanston around the same time, which was in like 2006, I was actually moving back. I grew up here, but we all came from different neighborhoods in Chicago. And one of the friends, the really funny one, said, it's weird that Evanston doesn't have neighborhood names. And so I've gone ahead and created some.
Right.
And so that was a fun night coming up with new names. But one of them was, he said, like, for instance, we live in Smittytown. And I thought for a second. And then I remembered that there's Smitty's Towing not more than a block away from the brewery. And I just burst out laughing. It's like, okay, so that is why there's a tow truck featured on the label art there.
See, stories.
Yeah.
Right.
The subtle.
And if you want to read the copy on there.
An unreal extra special bitter brewed with refined English malts, then bastardized with brazen American hops for celebrating a neighborhood that doesn't exist.
So, yeah. We kind of do that with, instead of dictating like what temperature or glass or pairing that you should enjoy this beer with, or we just kind of create a story. And this is definitely the least, like the next beer we'll get to, it sort of suggests a certain sort of moment or feeling. This one is definitely kind of just out there. But I think it's, and then actually so when I met with, so we started with head brewer Claudia Gendron from Goose Island, and I was going through the homebrew recipes, and I was like, here are all of them. Be brutally honest, and cut anything that's not good. And like I think out of the 8 or however many, she cut only 1. So I was like, wow, that's amazing. Maybe she's being too nice. But so she had the idea of, well, why don't we do like a straight head ESB too, instead of just the cherry version. So I was like, oh, okay. So that's how it came to be. And then she kind of took the, I had already tried to normalize because I couldn't do like 4 ounces of this malt and 7.5 of that. So John and I, my friend who originally did the first brew, we started to sort of like simplify it so it wasn't like 7 malts, but then she took it to commercial level. So.
That's cool. Yeah, and actually that's one thing when we were looking at the in episode I think 15, Gate Crash and Restless Years, like that sense of the can telling you a little bit about what's in there, but also evoking like the experience or some kind of engaging the imagination a little bit, which I appreciate about any kind of content that's on the label. It's there's imagination, but it's also not. Let's say some labels can get a little wordy. I think we all know who we're thinking about. And again, those ones I find like sometimes I'll read them if I'm just sitting there, but like I don't always have the time to read like just some guy like kind of going off. I like that there's a concise quality to what you guys are doing, which I respect.
Yeah, we want you to be done reading before the beer's warm.
Right. That's perfect.
And I could see this going with some cherry or something because there's a little bit of a fruitiness to it already anyhow, so just accentuating that.
Yeah, and that was sort of the wonderful freedom of home brewing. It's just like, well, I don't know, let's try it. Not looking like, is this on the market yet?
Right.
Is this something that can sell? So
yeah,
we haven't actually brewed it I don't think we brewed it at all last year. The Smittytown Tart, which now with the huge sour craze, we have to
Yeah.
call like cherry Smittytown or Smittytown cherry because people were always like, this isn't
Right.
tart. It's like, no, they're tart cherries.
Right. So that's
Forget
where you
it.
get into like a consumer education sort of issue, right? We're in this weird place where there's like the super beer geeks who almost like know enough to like to be dangerous, and but then also the people who just need it to like be who don't know that an extra special bitter is going to be malty, and so need to be sort of, you need to give them a little something different, and trying to work on those multiple levels of the different kinds of consumers you might have coming in here. So
Yeah, it's always a challenge. And then the fun thing is when they mispronounce the names of the beers.
Sure.
Like the favorite one right now, for me at least, like it's happened so much that I often refer to the beer in the wrong way, is escapist becomes escapist.
All right.
Really?
Yeah, it's like,
Would not have
escapist is a real
It's
word.
an actual word.
Yeah.
Right.
We didn't make that up.
I would not have expected that
Yeah.
to be the.
Yeah, I was thinking like, which one is it going to be?
Yeah,
Escapist.
Greenwood. A
That's
lot of
funny.
people will say like Glenwood. Smittytown. Sometimes they'll say Smutty Nose or Smutty Town. You know, like, no, Smutty Nose. That's a different brewery.
That's a different brewery. Shoot.
Gatecrasher. We've had some interesting ones. Restless Ears often like reckless or
Okay,
relentless.
Relentless. Interesting. Yeah.
I think they're just not. Maybe they need reading glasses. I don't know.
That's probably it depends how deep in.
Yeah, we did make the sign. The original board was a lot harder to read. This one,
Right.
if you have good eyes, you can read it from the deck.
Yeah,
but
no,
still
I remember the original board, and it was very detailed. Yeah,
a little too detailed.
ABVs and
Yeah.
ounces, and you might find IBUs up there. Yeah.
No, we never really measured
No?
the
Okay.
IBUs. But yeah, and so now we put the more detailed information on the printed menu, so you can
So it's there for somebody.
hold
Yeah.
it.
So can you go back to those early days, 2013, which is only 5 years ago in some ways, but in beer terms, it feels like a lot has gone on in 5 years. But what was your sense of the scene or the landscape of beer, craft beer, when you started? Like, what were the kinds of things that were on your mind of like why you're doing this and what you have to do in order to make a mark and to kind of stake out your place?
Right. Yeah. So the name Gatecrasher came, and the story was because I felt like, wow, the IPA market is saturated, but I guess we'll do one too. And now it's like, what? 5 years later, how many more hundreds of IPAs are there, and at least two different styles, right? Like brute and hazy. So it's always been a moving target, just figuring out what people want and what is going to be the next big thing. But we don't actually necessarily follow those trends. In fact, I can't. Lagers, the lager that we're doing now wasn't really a response to sort of a move of consumers toward more sessionable options, so much as we really wanted to brew a lager for ourselves. And it would add a depth to the offerings that we had. So, and we do have a lot of people come in here. We're like, what's your latest beer? Actually, when I used to be behind the bar every week, I equated latest with like lowest in alcohol.
Right.
And so the first time that happened, it was somebody saying, "What's your latest beer?" And we had National Anthem. Our at that time was just blueberry wheat. Now it's got blueberry and raspberry. Blueberry wheat beer. I was like, "Oh, it's National Anthem. It's a wheat beer." It's like, "Okay, great." And then he came back. He's like, "What is this?" It's like, well, it's only 4.5% alcohol, but really they more are interested in like light flavor and light color, especially. So now we have something that is, beer.
Right.
It's just lager. But in the beginning, we since some of my homebrew, well, they were kind of all over, but they weren't like crazy, the things I did. But then Claudia also, she coming from Goose Island, that's more of an English bent. So we started out with the National Anthem, Restless Years, which is the one you already covered, the pale ale with rye, Root Down, robust porter with brewed with chicory root and licorice root, and then oh shucks, what's the there were four. So National Anthem, Restless Years, Root Town, and it wasn't Gatecrasher. That it wasn't around yet. Oh, Smitty Town. Smitty Town, yeah.
Okay.
The one we're drinking now.
Yeah.
So, that was like, with 4 beers, it's still covering a lot of stuff. There was one hoppy, then porter, ESB, and fruit wheat beer. And from there, we kind of branched out, and but more for like, well, what do we want to drink? Like, oh, I really wanted a Belgian double, so then we started doing quotidien, and so we haven't been like following trends. Like, we're not. I actually enjoy hazy IPA as a drinker, but the brewers, like, we're never doing it. Like,
Okay.
I mean, they're like, well, you're the boss if you want to,
Right.
but like, no, I don't want you guys to compromise your principles.
Right.
So we're not going to jump on that bandwagon. We did one sour, but it was a unique. It wasn't a kettle sour. It was something that we could never duplicate again. But maybe we would do something like that. But we're concerned about cross contamination and
Right.
that kind of stuff.
Right.
Gino, our sales rep, really wants us to get more into sour, and so it as long as the brewers are cool with it, I'm cool with it too. And he's interested in more, instead of the kettle sour, more of a barrel aged, barreled sour.
Right. Yeah,
but
you kind of have separate things for that, don't you?
Yeah, and so I think one way that we carved out a space for ourselves was really like geographically, being in Evanston and being the first brewery. Hopefully, I was hoping that since I grew up here, and I knew that there's like a fierce Evanston pride, that if we could get out there and make people know about us and provide a space for them to have a good time and enjoy good beer, then that hometown pride would, help us and make a name for ourselves and, pay the rent. So that did happen, thankfully. And then within the first year of our existence, another brewery, Sketchbook, and then 2 brew pubs, Smiley Brothers and Packaged Pig, opened up. So all of a sudden, Evanston kind of became a beer destination.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It was really quick. It seemed like. Yeah.
Did you notice any drop or any, as far as your kind of sales with all that?
No, and I think people would ask, like, how do you feel about all these breweries? And since there is a somewhat of, and I remember when I was living in Chicago, there's a little bit of a, even though it might be closer to get here from Andersonville than to go to the West Loop, if you're in Andersonville, it's still like, oh, it's all the way up in Evanston.
Right.
So you're like, well, now we got 4 breweries. It felt like it gave people more of a reason to come and explore. Like, oh, well, we can make a day of it, kind of thing. So.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And you actually have parking, which is nice.
Yeah.
Not
free.
Everybody. Yes.
Yeah.
Free
Yeah,
parking.
that's-
That's a big consideration, and that's one reason I don't like to go into the city sometimes. Is just like, I gotta leave half an hour early just to find a parking space.
$15.
Yeah. 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 The only disadvantage you have here, when I was thinking about doing like a little Evanston beer tour with some buddies, and like a couple of them are walkable, or like a long walk, but like it was like we'd have to start here, so we wouldn't have had too many before we had to like drive to the next destination.
Yeah.
But being out a little bit far from like the L, say.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I
But-
guess there is a divvy station a block away. But.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's a good angle. That's relatively new. So,
So local helped.
Local
They were
helped.
kind of with getting going, just being here first is
Yeah.
really helped.
And then we're part of the larger Chicago beer market too. So it's like hopefully the best of both worlds, right?
Yeah.
yeah, obviously a great scene here. Do you think it's how would you say things have changed in 5 years that you've been doing this?
Well, a lot more breweries, which is it's crazy. I took and now teach or present a lecture at this course at SIBO called Start Your Own Brewery, and it's run like twice a year. And the first time I did it, which I think was 2014, it's when I presented a lecture, and that was there were like 40, 50 people in the class, and they just did one in June, which I thought, really, they're still doing it? I mean, people are still trying to do it. I think there were like 12.
Okay.
But still, it's enough. I mean, even when I took it, people were saying, we've got enough breweries.
Right.
Of course, to counteract that, I thought, well, is the market going to be saturated with like Italian restaurants? Nobody is ever like, we have enough pasta.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's too much pizza.
joints.
Yeah.
So yeah, they just keep coming, and that's kind of that, and then the fact that liquor laws keep changing too, which it's usually a good thing for us, because I think our guild is doing a good job, representing our interests and down in Springfield, but then also beer styles, like the hazy haze craze. I'm waiting for like the next thing to be like, we want perfectly clear English IPAs.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was Josh Noel, I think, tweeted recently, like, I'm beginning to think like a clean, piney IPA is like old school.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, every time it happens, I was like, this is the old man, this is what it was like.
Right.
I think it just sends me back. Like,
So like 18 months ago.
right. Yep.
Yeah.
That's how fast it's changing, I guess.
Yeah. Should we knock this out?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm kind of ahead of you.
Yeah, it's all right.
No worries.
Should I go get number 2?
Yeah.
So we started doing this thing called a beer race. We don't. No.
Right.
Oh yeah, this is actually a good. Swap out the.
All right, we did a little video editing magic there. Now we're drinking the Greenwood Beach Pineapple Blonde.
Cheers. So this was designed. This is another one of my homebrew recipes. That was meant to be a. Sorry if I jumped in.
No, go ahead.
Meant to be a fruit beer for people who didn't think they like fruit beers, because I knew I didn't really like fruit beers. So it's light on the. I mean, you get a lot of pineapple on the nose.
Yeah.
But then it finishes with more of a hint of, and you really get that beer taste. It doesn't.
Right.
It's not like a Radler,
Yeah. Yeah, this is very subtle.
but still lower alcohol.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you get a little that tropical citrus still, and it's lighter, so it works well together.
Beautiful color. And that's this one, obviously, right? So, I'll read the copy. Swimsuits on fences, chances taken. Summer belongs to the carefree and the courageous. Greenwood Beach Blonde embraces summer with a bold addition of pineapple. It's a beer for the opportunities you don't pass up. That's perfect.
It brings the tear to my eye.
Do you write the copy for the?
Yeah,
Do you really?
That's one of my favorites. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice one.
As we're in 20 episodes in, I mean, I think this is one thing that we both really agree that is a good differentiator for a lot of the beers. Just that little paragraph to like help sell you a little bit, to just bring you somewhere. It's key. I mean, that's it's like 2 sentences. It's perfect.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And we try to. I also noticed that a lot of, I guess advertising in general tries to make you feel a lack of, like you're missing something, and this product is gonna make you
Whole.
right?
Right.
And then beer, especially some of the craft beer, tends toward the like machismo, like tougher than, cooler than thou. And so it's like, if you're not drinking this beer, you're not doing it right.
Right.
I don't want to feel bad about myself.
Yeah.
So we try
pressure.
to try to do the opposite. Like, we know that beer is not as important to you as it is to us. But so given that, we're trying to make some beer that you can enjoy while you're doing other fun things, or whatever. You don't have to sit there and
Right.
judge it. Although we do make beers that can win awards. It's more about accessible, interesting, hopefully memorable and something that you'll want to drink again.
Right.
Like, oh, remember that time we were totally sneaking beers on the beach? That was a really fun day. Let's do that again. Let's get Greenwood Beach again. That kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you mentioned accessible and sort of capturing the imagination, I guess. I'm curious if you have other sort of go-to red lights on. Do we need to set the timer?
No, it's good.
Okay. Okay. Are there other words that for you are sort of go-to keywords that are your brand words? Is this about the story of what you want your brand to be about?
I think for one, when you're using a word for the beer itself is balanced, and I often talk about it's not one note, it's not just all hops or so it's it's more about the symphony than the soloist, and I think that we want. I mean, beer is like the most casual of I think alcoholic drinks, and so. So we want it to I mean, we want to elevate the craft of it and the enjoyment of it, but not the sort of snootiness. We're not trying to make it something that, I mean, that's again with the copy. It's like we're not telling you how many different types of malts are in here, and somebody will look at it and be like, I don't know what kind of otter a Maris otter is, right. And so I'm going to put this beer back. Like we want to remove obstacles, and also then encourage, some risk taking. Like, oh, I've never tried this beer, but the can looks fun, and it reads nicely, and ooh, pineapple. So, just trying to. It's the same thing with like the design of the tap room here. It's designed to be, with the. I mean, now everybody's got this, but not that we were a trend setter, but it just tapped into the pulse of what was going on anyway, and taking the cue from German beer gardens, like a lot of shared spaces and communal tables. Because beer, you like, oh, are you using this chair? No, what are you drinking there? It's that kind of thing. So it's all about encouraging people to really. I mean, this is the thing about this is as I'm hesitating, like most breweries talk about this, but I mean, I guess that's the thing about beer. Like it's fun. Let's keep it fun, but let's make really great beers that people can enjoy and come back to.
But I mean, and like you said, even though they may be taking a similar approach, like you said, I mean, there's the basic information that a normal person, they know there's pineapple in there, there's a beach, so it's like just two distinct images that are like, okay, I could bring this while I'm chilling at the beach, putting it in my big gulp or something, like
a little refreshing.
Right. Yeah.
So, and we do take some like Evanston specific cues, like that picture of the tow truck was actually, I took the picture of a Smitty's tow truck, and then my designer was funny. He's like, yeah, so I cleaned up the tow truck a little bit. It was a little broken down. So it looks a little bit nicer than most tow trucks do. But, and then this picture, the Greenwood Beach label, I actually went on a very sunny February day and took that picture, and I hung up swimsuits on the fence. People walking by, what the hell is he doing?
Right.
What's he staging?
Yeah. But so I try to. I mean, not all of them have Evanston, imagery, but National Anthem does too. It's so that's like a height of summer, 4th of July kind of thing. So it's got fireworks, and again, I took a picture right at the Evanston lakefront, because the designer had sort of. I said, like watching fireworks at the water, and he, put like evergreens in the distance, like islands, and I was like, no, I want it here. Use this instead. So for those, but also keep it universal enough that, it doesn't exclude anybody. But the people who are like from Evanston or know Evanston, like, oh my God, this is the actual. These are the rocks I used to play on.
Yeah, that's the fence, and So I'm curious though, like it's true that a lot of breweries, and that's like one thing that I'm on a lot when I'm looking at copy on brewery websites, is that a lot of them are kind of like, we're here to make great beer. It's like, okay, good. I mean, I hope so, like as a starter. But like, when you have everybody doing that, what are the things that keep you relevant? Is it really diving into the local thing, and you're also saying like kind of using the local to also be universal. What are you hoping is going to keep you relevant when more and more people are coming on the scene, also wanting to make great beer?
Yeah, this is one of the challenges in the market right now is, how do you balance the craft beer lovers' behavior, which is, what do you got that's new? Who's the new brewery? What do you got? Yeah, Temperance, great. Yeah, hey, Gatecrasher, what do they got that's new? With then like the Binny's and Jewel and Targets who are like, we need a consistent supply of this 6-pack, so you can't just be like, oh no, well this is version 12 of our IPA. What? So we're trying to balance that. We're doing more like short runs of seasonal cans and putting, say, okay, this is limited, 150 cases of this in the market, to try to balance that in the stores and places like Valley, which is like a stone's throw away from here. One of our best accounts, George there is amazing. He's always like, give me something, whatever you got that's new. We want a lot of it, and so that's why we actually got that 20-barrel fermenter. It's like we can do something where we do 20 barrels and half of it goes into cans, half of it goes into kegs. We keep half of those kegs then.
Right.
And so because that's the other thing, accounts want, it's the same thing as like the consumers. Well, what do you got that's rare or special? So if it's like, well, we got Gatecrasher. Like, yeah, you have that all the time. And like, yeah, we have to. We can't run out. That's, I think, a balancing act for us. Although I don't know if I've answered your question entirely. How to stay relevant, right?
Yeah.
You kind of did, though.
Innovation is part of it, I think.
Yeah.
For everybody.
Because you're playing to both hands. You're clearly like Target and Binny's, all those big places. You have the consistent, but like you're putting out the smaller stuff to that liquor store. You guys here. I think that's.
And we also are trying to, do a lot of fun stuff in the tap room. So we have the, and also, like, I always thought of this as like a sort of a community space. Sometimes, most of the time people will come and drink beer, but, only a few times have we been like, this big group out there that just seems to have brought pizza, and there's like, 12 people and 4 beers have been purchased. But we don't give them a hard time. It's like,
right.
Really? We love when on the weekends during the day, like kids will be here with their, like babies even, and I used to be in that position, so I'd be like, oh, thankfully there's a place where we don't have to get a sitter to just drink beer. Excuse me. And then we also, like I mentioned, we just had concerts with Space, the great performance venue in Evanston, and so like this whole parking lot was basically blocked off, and we had. This last weekend we had Thursday night we had Dinosaur Jr. and outdoor concert, and then the Lone Bellow, and then big finish with Slick Rick and the Cool Kids. So it was pretty amazing, and that is again sort of building community. Like a lot, and people in Evanston are especially grateful. They're like, this is amazing. This is a concert we can walk to or ride our bikes to. And then on a more regular basis we do Temperance Trikonasana, which is our monthly beer yoga class, which the alerts for that are off the charts. Like the yoga teacher, she has a Google alert for that. She gets like three to 4 a week, and as far as she can tell, we're the only one where every class goes. All the money from every class goes to a different, to charity to begin with, and then we choose a different local organization to work with each week, and one usually a smaller one where $300 to $400 makes a big difference.
Yeah.
So that's another way to kind of keep reaching out, and not only is it like we're being a good citizen, corporate citizen, or whatever. I don't feel. We don't feel like corporate, but helping out the community, but also it's just another way. Some people, it's amazing how many times. Well, it's not amazing. It's actually really great that. The yoga class every week or every month, it's like somebody's like, oh, I've never been here. I've never had your beer. Like, great, welcome.
Yeah. Dual purpose. Yeah. So staying local, being involved with the community helps, clearly. Just being involved. That's...
Yeah. Well, this is everybody's question in beer right now. It's like, how do you keep people buying beer? I think I was listening to is one of the beer talks, the Brewbound Brew Talks. And they had Trillium was on the panel. I can't remember the guy's name now, but he was just describing it, like he's had customers come in and say like, "You brew the best beer I've ever had. It's my favorite beer ever. What else do you have?" And he's sort of like, but I have your favorite beer.
Yeah.
What do you? What else? What
You may also have my new favorite.
What do you need? What more do you need out of me? Right?
That's
That just
really-
made your favorite beer.
It's a really good story.
Yeah. So like, I mean, that's everybody's trying to figure this out. And it does seem like what we've been seeing is like local, like really establishing a local presence is crucial for everybody. And obviously, you started with the tap room right
Yeah.
away, right?
Although actually we started distributing first.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
The first beers went out in September of 2013. Taproom didn't open until, well, how many months is that? December, like right before Christmas.
Okay.
So,
All right.
yeah, we didn't. Yeah, I know a lot of those places in the Northeast are just selling out of their taproom, right? Everything out of their brewery, which could. It's I can't remember what the phrase is, but anyway, it would be amazing if you could do that, because obviously the margins are better and all that stuff. But this is.
This is the
I've
gate
never
thrasher.
seen that person.
All right. Well, this is what happens in a
Yeah,
brewery in
okay,
Evanston, I
okay,
guess.
I do know. It's Dave. Dave, one of
All right.
one of our brewers.
We'll edit some
And
fire
he-
around his head in
Yeah.
post.
Yeah,
Then do it.
he keeps it fun. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So it's Ghost Rider.
Yeah.
And what is your current production distribution right now? Like,
In like, I think we're with one distributor right now, Lewis Glunn's in the Chicago area, and they cover 8 counties. We're
Okay.
looking to expand that reach. Haven't figured out. We haven't signed up with anyone yet for
Okay.
like downstate and maybe out of state, but we're looking into those opportunities for hopefully later this year and next year. And the production, like I said before, with the centrifuge, if we can get it dialed in so that we can run it, we can count on it, then that will be a nice way of doing it without adding more tanks.
Right.
But so that's where we are right now.
yeah, I mean, it seems like you're still doing a pretty significant amount for.
Yeah, and we
With-
just for almost half the year. About half the year. It was just it was mainly Dave, Mr. Scaryface, and Mike, and then we just brought on another guy, Isaac, to run the packaging line, and so that's
Okay.
and then Ethan also helps out too. So they were working really crazy hard. So
I've it just occurred to me, it wasn't on my original question list, but a lot of people are going to the 4-packs of 16-ounce cans, and I've heard like that's been big on the West Coast, and the people on the West Coast are like, we do everything first, and it's going to happen everywhere, and whatever it starts here and it moves its way inland, and
hello, Half Acre. They've been doing it for
Half
years.
Acre's been doing it a long time
Yeah.
too. So yeah, I guess I'm curious. Is there some sort of mission driven, or is there a reason you're sticking with the 12 ounces versus the 4 16s?
Well, the reason we're sticking with them right now is that it would cost a lot of money to retrofit our canning
Okay.
line.
Fair enough. Yeah,
Good enough
absolutely.
reason.
Yeah.
And the reason we started was I actually did a Facebook poll back in the day and was like, which would you prefer?
Okay.
And by far, it was like at least 2 to 1. I can't remember exactly. People wanted the 6-pack of 12 ounce.
Yeah.
And women, I think basically 98% of the women who responded wanted that.
Interesting.
And there were 2 main sort of themes. One was value proposition. You get however many more ounces in this.
Right.
Right.
Also, when you go to a party or you're sharing,
Right.
you have 2 more to share.
Yeah.
And then finally, 16 ounces is a lot to drink in one setting and sitting, and so they're often warm, especially the bigger beers. And that was another thing they said. Well, I don't want, if I get a 16-ounce can, it's going to be warm before I finish it. Like, okay.
Yeah.
And then another brewery owner was like, you'll sell more of 12 ounce than 16 ounce because people will be like, here we just sell them in 6-packs, but they'll think, yeah, I'll have one more. You drink 12 ounces. Like, yeah, I'll have another pint. You might be
Right.
like, that's plenty. I can't do a whole another pint.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. That's no. That's I mean, what's interesting about that is you have actual market research. Like your consumer base told you what they wanted, and you're like, all right,
Yeah.
it works. Like if it makes no difference to you. So that's that's really interesting. Just because I hear different things, so it's just But if your consumer base is telling you that, then
And then I've also noticed these 19.2 ounce cans that seem to have burst on the scene in the last few months. I'm like, wait, they just keep getting bigger.
American way.
Yeah. And I'm like, that's definitely gonna get warm unless it's like
right.
Yeah.
So you got to transfer to that Yeti, and
there we go.
Man,
It's like too big for a tumbler or rambler, I guess is what they're called. Anyway.
right. Yeah, those are. Yeah. So let's see.
We touched on a lot of things.
Yeah,
So the
this has been
biggest.
good.
So you're thinking even about distribution.
Well, I'm curious too.
Local.
Just thinking a lot about the politics of beer, and which not. Well, here's what I'm saying. Here's how I want to put this. In terms of thinking about what the consumer is interested in, I see you got the independent seal on your office window, the BIA independent seal. You don't think you have it on your packages yet, do you?
The newer ones we do, like
They will?
the
Okay.
shrink wrap sleeves that we're doing the small cans for.
We'll have it on there. So can you talk about the importance of independence to you as a brewer, and then maybe compare that to how important you think it might be to your consumers?
Yeah, I think for us, as I mentioned earlier, we're not brewing to fads or trends.
Yep.
And that might change. Let's say AB wanted to buy us. Like how many different varieties of Bud are there now? There's like Bud Lime, the Lime-A-Rita and all that stuff. It's like I would be worried about that.
Okay.
Just following trends and
Right.
what's the market data say. And obviously, you have to pay attention to the market, otherwise you may not be able to stay in business to follow any.
Right.
But I think also consumers, people value sort of integrity and they're not doing whatever it is, the new thing, but they're sticking to what they believe in and they're doing it well. And so I think the independence, especially if you're dealing with like a small business, I think maybe consumers who don't, because the real hardcore like craft beer drinkers, they'll know all the places that have been bought out, but then others may feel like they were sort of hoodwinked. Like, I went to this great local place. Like, that's actually owned by, XYZ Corporation. What?
Yeah.
So I think it matters in that way. It's like you can walk in here and like meet everybody who works here, and there's no person behind the curtain pulling the strings. And so I think it's good for us too, because then we just internally we're small enough that I hope everyone feels like their voice is heard. So there's not like a dictate from up above, like, okay, big boss man saying we got to do this. Okay. There's if they, I don't think they call me the big boss man, but if they have a problem, they can come up and say, what, I don't know if this beer idea is a really good one, and it won't be like, what,
Right.
So,
well, even when you were saying that the pushback about doing a hazy IPA,
right,
and now you're willing to be like, all right, like you're my people. I hired you because you're good at what you do, and if this
I'll just go buy somebody else's.
Hazy IPA. Right. But like having that relationship and that trust for your team.
Yeah.
You could see that making a big difference.
And two, like I encourage them to be creative. So and that can be just like a one-off keg. Like, hey, like Dave, scary guy. Yeah, not scary at all. But so he likes playing with tinctures. So he did a special one of actually this beer, Greenwood Beach, with a pina colada, tea tincture, and added to the keg, and it was like, whoa,
Yeah.
this is amazing.
Yeah.
So that, I want to encourage that kind of thing. And I think independence is also just like everybody, there are independent people here who can come up with their own independent ideas and make them, we can all play with them and see if they're worth blowing up to something bigger.
Yeah.
You touched on that, and I don't know if I can even ask some of the other people getting into the harder liquor. Is that even? Do I even ask about that, or have you guys even considered rum or whiskey
Distilling?
No, it was like the same thing with cider. People will say, "Why don't you guys do a cider?" We don't know cider.
That's a whole new.
Yeah, the craziest non-beer thing that we're doing is kombucha. It's very, very small batch, just in carboys. Like we're doing 4 5-gallon carboys at a time. And so that's basically we can do that in 2 weeks, and we'll do different flavors, and it's just for the tap room.
Right.
Just to kind of give. We used to have root beer, but we wanted that extra tap line for. Well, first of all, while we don't discriminate against children, we weren't necessarily looking for something that brought in more children.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So kombucha, kind of, people who are looking for gluten-free and maybe something that's not, that doesn't have alcohol in it.
Right.
And it's really, we've really gotten good at it. So the last one was a mojito. So it was kombucha with then just lime and mint. I think the next one will probably be a watermelon-based one. So.
That sounds good.
Yeah. So we're not
about
looking
as wild.
into cider or distilling or coffee.
Yeah.
Those other craft extensions.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Which, the guy who started Intelligentsia, I can't remember his name, but it's I really respected him when they were we know coffee, that's what we're going to do. And even so far as I don't know if that was the original cafe, but the one on Broadway, just south of Belmont, I used to go there a lot. And first they had a cooler with smoothies in it and all sorts of other stuff for sale. And then, I think it was when I moved up to Evanston, had been there for a few months, I went back and I was like, where'd everything go? They pared everything down. And I was like, wow, that took some, cojones to kind of I know we're not going to offer the stuff that we used to offer. And we're just going to focus on the stuff that we do well, which is coffee. It's that's pretty cool. So I'm okay with, sticking to beer.
Yeah.
Cool.
Right. I mean, if that's what you know, you gotta get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You actually, and then did you? I don't know if you have any other, but you briefly mentioned it earlier. What is your go-to out of yours?
So that changes, and sometimes I have to remind myself. The reason I mentioned the coffee Smitty is the other day. I was like, oh right, we have that.
Yeah.
Oh, this is really good. So I often, in the summer months, if Birdsong or Saison is on, I'll go with that. Greenwood is also a good go-to for me. And then now that the Basement Party Lager is back on, I'll do that. I think and then if we have Quotidian, our Belgian double, that's a go-to. I love that style of beer. And I think the one that we did, and that was another thing, Claudia created that one, and people are always like, oh, did you guys do a small batch to test it? It's nope.
Really?
40 barrels, and it
Wow.
turned out amazing. So
Thankfully, it worked.
Yeah. You did have somebody who knew what she was doing.
right, yeah. So
That
it's
helps.
wow, nice work.
Yeah.
And then Root Down's another one that I always forget I'm always like, porter, and then I have it, I'm like, wait, this is really good. So I didn't really tell you the go-to, but I think if Quotidian is there, I'll drink that. Birdsong is there, I'll drink that. I don't usually go for Gatecrasher or Escapist or Restless Years. And then my absolute favorite one is our barrel-aged Mike Meets Right called La Sorpresa, which was one that we just did this last year that had elements of a Mexican hot chocolate in it, so cinnamon, vanilla, peppers, and espresso powder and cacao nibs. And that was amazing.
Yeah. I just missed that release. Yeah, that sounded really good.
We'll do more. We'll do it again, and we'll do more of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. We didn't have a very good yield this last year, and so now that we brewed twice as much, or at least half as much, or 150% more, and hopefully the yield was better going into the barrels. So
Great. So what's funny though, what you were describing there is, I think what a lot of like veteran craft drinkers go through is like, you see all these choices, and there's the kind of things that are like sort of top of mind, and then there's the beers that every once in a while you go back to because they're in the cooler when you're at a party or something. We did this with like Sierra Pale, our first episode, and it's like every time I have them, I'm like, this is a good beer.
Yeah, right.
Like that's right, I remember.
Yeah.
Like, and like that experience of like having to kind of go further down the list of the beers that, in some ways, I don't know what you want to say, like they're not, for whatever reason, they're not as like emotionally powerful in your mind, or maybe they're not as like exciting in terms of whatever's in there. But when you try them and you go back to them, there's always that great like moment of remembering and enjoying it again, and just being like, yeah, this was the right choice. Like,
Right.
Like
Like you're talking about the piney IPAs. and
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah. But yeah, our sales rep Gina will often do that. Go back to accounts and say, I know you've had this. I just want to remind you.
Yeah, that's
Like,
good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, remember.
Smart.
Right, because we're so inundated with novelty.
Yeah.
Right, and of course that's as you were saying, like it's something you're thinking about too. Like how do we innovate? What are the new things we can come out with so that somebody, when they want to know, when they come in, they want to see what's new. You have something, but then I kind of think there's like room in the industry to have well, I thought about like a craft beer syllabus. Like, if you want to like really learn what craft beer is, you go back and start with these beers. And I used to teach college English, so
Syllabus.
But the canon keeps changing, though.
Yeah, it does, and of course availability is always an issue. But also I think of like even within a brewery, like there's room to kind of like have like the almost maybe like a featured beer of the month of like, hey, remember?
Yeah.
Remember Root Town?
Yeah.
Like, when was the last time you had one of these? Like, and just because I think a lot of people would be like, sometimes we just need that nudge to go back and try something again and be like, oh yeah, I like this.
Yeah.
We're actually, and I think we've almost brought that up with some of the social media. I think a lot of breweries could like stand to really go back to like spend a week devoted to some of the ingredients and the special beers, and
That's an interesting idea.
just to remind people, just
Yeah.
because that's what it is. Just hey, this is the special part about it. This is why. Hey,
This isn't new, but
Right.
it's still really good.
but it's still worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is part of what it means to drink our beer. Is to drink this. Yeah. So, all right, I think we should wrap this up.
Yeah.
And I'm way
These
behind you
down.
on this time.
Yeah, it's all right. We get you talking. That's what we need.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's how we want it.
It's nice and sweet going down.
I know.
Yeah,
Very
and
nice.
So light. That wraps up this episode. You've been listening to 2 Beers and a Podcast with Brad and Mike and our special guest Josh Gilbert.
If you like what you heard, be sure to do the liking, subscribing, and rating thing. If you have an idea for a topic and pairing, message at 2BeersPod on Twitter or Instagram. And if you want to learn more about our video, web, and social media marketing services, email 2beerspod@gmail.com.
You can also find us at 2beersandapodcast.com. Until next time, keep telling stories.
Keep drinking, keep tweeting.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Official.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.